Hi, my name is Vishal and I'm a senior trainer in multimedia education. I have 18 years of industry experience and let's get started with the video. Hello guys, welcome. I just wanted to make some series on animation, especially in 3D software. So I'm using Maya right now to explore the animation in this particular software, and most of the times the animation concepts remain same. So here uh, this is basically Maya interface, and I just wanted to guide on both aspects of Maya's way of handling 3D animation and Maya tools. And also I just wanted to talk about animation also. So what is basically animation in terms of Maya or 3D animation program? So transformation is something which we have to understand, because the whole animation lies in this. So we have this object called polygon sphere, which has just created. So like any other object inside Maya, this is one of the objects. So every object will have something called transform node. So let me open a window called hypergraph connections. Okay, and then you'll able to see some connections here, some nodes here. So there are two important nodes which I want to discuss. So firstly, I would like to delete the history of this object, because this object has been created from a primitive, and then you should able to see this primitive history is there, which can allow you to change the radius and subdivisions, all that. So this polysphere is basically one of the node, and it is the history of this geometry. So I can go to edit, delete by type history, and then you are ended up with one node called shape node and another node called transform node. Okay, so shape node is basically a node which controls something related to polygonal model, something like mesh smooth or display options, all that stuff. Like in case if I've taken a light, okay, so a light will have the color intensity. So this is these are some attributes which come under the light shape node, while light transform node has something very specific to transformation. So P sphere 1 and P sphere shape 1 are two nodes in which, if you could see shape as the suffix, that's a shape node. If you don't see that, that's a transform node. So whenever you select an object, so you will see one shape node and you'll see one transform node. The other things are this is shader related thing, initial shading group or shading group in general, and we have a shader there. So I'm talking very specific about transform node here. So we have a channel box where we have all that transformation related controls, and we have attribute editor. Again, we have the transformations. So in transformations, most importantly, we have translation. Okay, then we have rotation, then we have the scale. Okay, so we have these three important transformations. So moving an object is called translation, rotation, and then scale. So these are the three important transformations. You have shear, and you can use it if you wanted it to deform in a shear pattern. Okay, so let's if I add a value of 1 here, it generally shears, and it generally goes cross like that. Okay, so again, very rarely used, but if it's required for your model to shear, you can definitely use it. Now the point is, right now this object is located at the origin, and it has got some values which are zeros in translation and rotation, and one in the scale. Let's say if I move this somewhere, and then you able to see the values have changed here. Okay, so if I move the object in the direction of the rotation, okay, and sorry, if I move the object in the direction of the arrow, okay, I'm moving in positive, and if I push it, I'm moving in the negative side. So from one grid point to another grid point is 1 unit, and 1 unit here is 1 centimeter. Okay, so if I change a value of 1 here in the translation X, it moves 1 unit like that from that point to that point. So we have a rotation. Let's say if I enter 45, then it is 45 degrees. It's an angular unit. Okay, then we have scale. Scale is basically a multiplier. Okay, which means if I enter a value of 2 here, the object becomes double the size of what it was earlier. So it is multiplied 2 times. Okay, bigger. So it's a multiplier generally. So whatever the size is there earlier, it becomes bigger to that. So that's what you have. Now when it comes to animation, what we basically do in Maya, so you know, animating object is nothing but moving the object, okay, in the way you wanted it to. So we may animate this one as a bouncing ball, or we may animate it as a boulder rolling from a cliff. So it can be anything, okay, or anything which tennis ball, or a planet rotating around the sun, anything you can do it with this. Okay, now how do you rotate it is what really important. How do you move it is what really important. So we have a time slider below, and this is basically representing the time, and right now I'm able to see from 1 to 24 numbers. So what are these numbers? This is actually time. Okay, so if I, let's say, hit play here, so just like your VCR controls or any video player controls, it generally plays that, and the current time indicator we can say, and that keeps moving like a playhead, and that movement will show you the movement in the animation what you have done. But here, as you can see, nothing is happening, and the reason is I have not animated this. So what are these numbers actually? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. These are frames. Okay, so what is frame, what is a reel, and what is a film roll, all that's a whole different subject. And frame is basically a one picture of a video. Okay, you might have seen a film in a theater, and it comes in a roll, and in that roll you will have one photograph after another photograph, and that photographs come before projector, and they give a motion, and there's a whole different concept involved in it called persistence of vision, and it and projector works on that basis and all that stuff. Now the point is that particular frame is what you have here. So frame number 1, so what is the photograph? Frame number 2, what's the photograph? So if there is change in the position of any object in the photograph from frame number 1 to 2, you get moving picture effect. So we try to move this object frame after frame, frame after frame, and we have to do it, and that is basically called keyframe animation. Okay, so in 1 second you have 24 photographs or 24 frames. Okay, is it really 24 required, or any other numbers are also there in basically 1 second? It depends upon different types of mediums and films. The frame rate keeps changing. So some people, like when they do stop motion, they may prefer for 16 frame, or sometimes high speed cameras shoot at 10,000 frames per second or 1000 frames per second. High speed cameras basically, so where you could capture a bullet fired from a gun, and generally you can't capture it with a normal camera, because normal camera captures only 24 frames of a second. So we have this time slider on ranging from 1 to 24, which means let's say if I've given with 1 second of task, then I can set my time slider to 1 frame to 24 frames. Let's say if I've given you 240 frames, okay, let's say if I've given 10 seconds, then I have to set my time slider to 240 frames there. So I can just play, and then you should be able to see the movement if there is any animation, but there is no animation done here. Okay, so let me go back to 24, and we have a range slider below, which is basically having 4 boxes, which is first let's talk about the first box here and the last box here. So the total duration of the animation is starting from 1 frame and ends to 240 frames here. So this is 10-second animation which I am planning to take. Okay, now the second and the third box, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm talking about the second and the third box. They represent the magnification of that time slider. So I've zoomed into a range of 1 to 24. Okay, and that range can be seen here, frame number 1 and frame number 24. Let's say if I slide it like that, okay, this one, so the range is now starting at 50 and ends at 73. So you could see your first frame here is 50 and the last frame is 73. So you have this range here, and you could see you can enter here the starting frame to 25 and end frame to 50. Then you should able to see 25 to 50 is the range given here. So you can click, okay, you can click like that and drag it to increase the range from 25 to 120. So when you click and drag, the number keeps changing here, and you can hold and see whether you have magnified it to your desired range there. You can also offset your time slider with the slider button here. So let's say if I put it on the first frame, and you have frame number 1 to frame number 24 is magnified here, and if I click and drag, now it is frame number 44 to 67. So this is greatly useful when you want to break your time work. Let's say there is 10 seconds of animation and you want to concentrate only on first 2 seconds for now, then you can generally put it like that, frame number 1 to frame number 45. So you can play it and then see only 48 frames there instead of all that range of 240 frames. So this is basically time slider, and you have some playback controls. I'll be talking about certain keyboard shortcuts and also the use of all these playback controls in a different video as we progressively talk about all that animation. So let's go to 24th frame and range to 24 frames, and then try to understand how we do animation inside Maya. Okay, so we have this sphere, okay, sitting at the origin. So we have translate X, which is I just want to see I want to explore how animation works, so I just want to animate only that channel. Okay, so firstly I go to frame number 1 and then I select this translation X, right click, and then I choose an option called key selected. So what happens is I have set a key here. So what is a key and all that stuff, what terminology we are using, why do we call it as key, all that I'll tell you. Right now we have translate X, and you could see there is some red color mark here. So you could able to see here translation X is a mark in red color, and also here in the time slider you could see a red mark. I can go to settings and preferences. Okay, just here there's a on the lowest corner I could see here settings preferences. I can go to the time slider and I can increase the height of this time slider to 2x, which makes the time slider height bigger, and also I can increase the key tick size here from 1x to 2x to maybe 4x or 5x. So what happened here is you could see the tick mark here became very thick. If not, the tick mark was very thin. Okay, so for you to see it, I'm just scaling that key tick size to 5x. So you should able to see on frame number 1 there's a red tick here. Okay, so if I want to animate this ball in the traditional way, if I want this object to move from this point to this point, so what I need to do is I need to imagine my second frame, move that object and apply a key. Then you should able to see frame number 1, the translate X value is 0, and then frame number 2, translate X value is 1.1. If I go to the frame number 3 and then move it, then again apply key, then you should able to see the object starts moving. And this way of doing animation is not recommended, because this is you have technology, you need not waste or spend time on creating pose of that object frame by frame. Computer does for you. So and also this is a very traditional way of doing called straight ahead animation type. So we don't do this way. So what I will do is I'll go to frame number 2, right click there and then say delete. Frame number 3, delete. So on frame number 1 the object is here. So I go to frame number 24 and then I move that to some 12 units and then apply key. So what I have done is on frame number 1 I have said translate X should be 0 and I set a key there. Then without touching any frames in middle, I directly went to frame number 24 and changed the value to 12 and then set a key. So if I go to frame number 1, it's there, and if I click on 24th frame, it went there. But what happens in the middle frames? Okay, what happens in the middle frames? So let's click and drag it, and you should able to see the middle frames are automatically animated by the software itself. So how is this actually possible? So it is possible by something called graph. Okay, let me explain you. I'll just try to explain how is it working. So I'm just drawing two axes, one is X and one is Y. I think I'll change the color to red. Okay, and then I'll draw the X axis and then change the color to green, and then draw the y-axis. Okay, and then let's put a black maybe, and then this is origin. Now x-axis is representing your time slider. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just telling x is equals to time, and then y is representing the value of the channel. Okay, so what is the value of the channel? The translate x. So on frame number 1, okay, and on frame number 24. So this I'm just calling this as time, and this I'm locating the frames on it, and we have this is 0, this is 1, and this is 12. Okay, so on frame number 1 the translate x value is 0, so I'll just try to locate that point in the graph. So it should be here. Okay, now on the frame number 24, okay, frame number 24, the value of the translate x, okay, y's value is 12, which is going to be here. So this is the frame. Okay, this is the point where you have your 24th frame key is located. Now what happens, you know, these 2 points will be connected with a line, and now this line is actually telling what happens on frame number 12. It should be somewhere. So this is not accurate scale, so it should be somewhere 6 or something like that. What happens at frame number 6? What happens at frame number 18? So this curve is representing. So this curve can be any type, okay, which means this curve is, these 2 points are connecting with a straight line called as interpolation. Let's say if these 2 points are connected like that or like that, the way ball moves from one point to another point will change in between, and that leads to something called slow in, slow outs and all. Okay, so I will show you the graph editor. So I go to Windows, Animation, Graph Editor, and then select the ball. You saw I've animated translate X, and you're able to see this graph here. It's a high school math basically. So you could able to see this is origin, and that's y-axis, and that's x-axis. So x-axis is representing time and y is representing value. So I've got 2 keys. The first key, x value is 1, y value is 0, which means on frame number 1 translate x value is 0, and for this on frame number 24 translate x value is 12. As I told you, the in-between curve can be of any type. So it can become like this, or it can become like this, or it can become like this, whatever. So in between position keeps changing because the curve is driving the position of the object for in between frames. So it is very important how this curve is going, and I'll show you what happens with different types of placement of this curve. Okay, and this is the very basic thing actually about what is a set key inside Maya, not in general, because set pose, key poses or breakdown poses or in between poses, that's whole different subject for animation. I'm just trying to make you understand how Maya works. Okay, so partially understanding Maya and partly understanding the animation is really important to you animating the objects. So if you could able to see, I just did that, and you should see I select the object, go to the graph editor, and then make it linear, and then you should able to see the object was like going straight. So it was like going straight, there is no hiccups there. But when I affected the graph, so it was like going front, back, and then going front. So you should able to see that thing. Okay, and I'll be covering more content about animation in the later videos. You can check the series. Okay.